Reach for the lasers and welcome to Let's Drone Out, episode 489 for Thursday, the 9th of January, 2024. Look who's got a new Mac, Cole. You're joined this week by our Lord, Saviour and Master, Andrew/Frank.
Hello, good evening.
Our friendly Canadian freestyler, Cole.
Howdy.
And myself, Stephen. Here on the evening of yet another new product launch. You know it's a new year when you've got a new video system, and here we are once again.
Yep.
It's at least 6 months since the last time DJI released an entirely new video system.
And they've managed, surprisingly, after releasing a Air unit, a Vista, and then an O3, to actually stick to a standard numeric frame of reference and go with O4. They didn't go for the DJI Supreme or the DJI Extra Cheese or anything. They just went straight to 4, which is slightly surprising.
I'm glad they didn't just sort of reset and go back to 1, because that's usually what they do.
Or just do Vista V2, just to keep everyone on the wrong foot.
Maybe 2.0, just to, make it clear it's not the V2 or the 2.
So we've got the
3.1,
which of course, as everyone knows, because it's the Air Unit 4, you use that with the Goggles 3, of course, because that's how it works. They're in the same product generation. The Air Unit 4 and the Goggles 3 are clearly in the 4th G. Yeah, you need a lookup chart for this, basically, but thankfully millions of people have created lookup charts, so we can see that the new Air unit works with the Goggles 3, the budget 60 Hertz N3, and apparently the Goggles 2 and Integra will get you somewhere towards that in a kind of compromised version as well.
Yeah.
And it looks like DJI kind of cranked the bit rate on this one, so they've gone for wider channels, which gives them more bit rate, going up to 60 megabit, 60 megahertz channels, and that kind of pushes the image quality a bit. And apparently the newer goggles can get a racing mode that lowers the frequency. They don't say what the regular frequency is, I think, but they advertise a racing mode frequency of 15 milliseconds on the 100 hertz capable Goggles 3, going up to a bit more on the 60 hertz goggles and falling back to same as the O3, 30 milliseconds on the older goggles.
So is that latency then?
That's latency. Or you don't know if it's like wire to wire, like camera interface to goggles internals, or whether it's glass to glass. They're really imprecise, so we're going to have to wait till someone buys it and measures it. And in all probability, it'll end up being like 33, 34, because that's just kind of how it works.
I'm sure it's still pretty damn good, though. Like the whole, from what I've gathered, I've tried some digital systems, but everyone says once you fly it enough, you get used to it, and there is latency compared to analog. Yeah, and I'm sure that's just will follow the suit for any digital system, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
do we know if the racing mode, so-called, is that a fixed latency? Because that's the other issues with digital systems, right? Is the variable
I think it's
latency?
still it's fundamentally the way they're doing it is like a packetized radio system with some degree of error correction. So it's not like one bit of video data in one end, one bit of video data out the other end. It's kind of like you put the video data in and the other end goes, have I got enough to actually build a frame? Maybe, okay, I'll try and draw it, or I might need to wait for some more to do error correction and then build the frame. So there's still going to be variability because there's this forward error correction stuff. Where
in terms of making a frame, though, right?
Yeah.
Can it make a frame and it just has...
It still does error correction, right? So it might be more predictable, but if they had a hard latency number where it was just down to 1 millisecond, they would have been shouting about that, and they haven't. So it makes me think there's still variability. It's just it's much less variable than it normally is when you put race mode.
Yeah. Because the other thing is, it doesn't sound like they're doing anything different with the actual radio system to make it like a race mode that will work with the VTX timing systems. So that's going to be presumably, it's not going to mean that just because they've have made a new racing mode that it's going to be suitable for quad racing, for example.
Right. Yeah. I don't think anyone is queuing up to put this in a quad. Not least because a single VTX, even if you go for the little Whoop one, that's still £100. This is not cheap. And they typically don't make it easy to replace items like camera lenses and camera housings. And in the past, we don't know what's going to happen here, but in the past, spare cameras were not easy to obtain. So you'd have to buy a completely new VTX to get another camera. So it's not really friendly for racing. What you're thinking about here is maybe some aggressive freestyle at most. Definitely for long or mid-range, I guess, because you don't know if there's a distance limitation. There certainly used to be one at like 26K, I think, for the previous system. So you probably bet there's going to be a similar range limitation because there's a maximum round trip that the system tolerates. And if you go beyond the signal propagation delay for that, then it just goes, nope, you're too far away, can't work with you. But yeah, it looks good. It looks good. The light VTX is supposed to be technically 1S, but it looks like it only goes down to 3-point-something volts. So you probably don't want to actually run it on a 1S system because if you punch out a Whoop, it will go below 3 volts and then your VTX is dead and you have to wait 10 seconds for it to reboot, which is not really what you want.
Sounds unpleasant.
Spicy, yeah. Like the HD0 one, I think, goes down to kind of 2.5 volts. So they put a decent regulator in there that could cope, but it doesn't look like they've done that here. But it is under 10 grams, which is
that's pretty wild. Yeah.
And under that sub 10 gram figure still nets you some pretty good capture as well. You're getting it's not like a GoPro 12, but it's probably going to beat your like GoPro 8 and the old Hero Session 5 with just a single camera solution.
So I was watching Potato Jet's review on it just maybe a couple hours ago, and I mean, he wasn't reviewing or using. I didn't get through the whole video, but I didn't see the 04 Lite version. But apparently, the 04 Pro version pretty much rivals the DJI Osmo Action 5.
Oh, really?
Not quite in dynamic range. Like the highlights do blow out a bit with the 04 compared to the Action 5. But what he was also saying was, if I'm not mistaken, the 04 Pro camera he thinks it's pretty much the same thing as the Avata 2 camera. Because even the ND filters from the Avata 2 work with the 04 Pro system. So it's kind of interesting there. But I don't know, man. Like I think going forward, like as we keep going forward, these digital systems keep getting so good that you don't even need an action camera anymore, almost, from what it seems like.
Well, you're getting incremental updates every 12 months, really, on these. And it's not that big going from, say, 2022 to 2023. But when you look at the progress they make over 4 or 5 years, it adds up. Definitely adds up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's crazy, too, because like I look at the prices. And I was on Amazon and I saw in Canadian this new 04 Pro system was like, after taxes, I'm looking around like 350, 360 Canadian dollars. And I mean, if you don't need an action camera, you're like it's not a cheap system. Like I was looking at the N3
how much is
goggles,
breaking a GoPro going to cost you?
$0 if you have the subscription.
Well, okay, if you're lucky enough to. Over here, it's just basically it's going to cost you a new GoPro if you break it. So
really?
It's kind of the same deal.
Surely you guys can have access to the GoPro subscription.
I'm not aware of it being a thing in the UK.
I've not heard of anyone here using it. I always hear about people in the US talking about it.
Yeah, like because I know people do the Best Buy thing or people do like the GoPro thing, but
certainly you can't do that Best Buy type of deal. Like you walk into a store and say, "Hey, yeah, this got smashed to bits because reasons." They're going to go, "Well, that's nice. Do you have a credit card?"
No, well, like what I was thinking is like, so I did the kind of math on it because obviously I'm an analog flyer. So goggles N3, which is the cheapest option that is compatible with this new system, they're about, I think it's like $250, $300 or something like that. Then $350 for the 04 system. So under $1,000, you can get into the latest and greatest digital system. Maybe not like the latest and greatest
And
goggles,
if you've got some like secondary quads, you can put the light one on there for like what $130 a pop. Just if you don't need the best on that drone.
Yeah, and then if you don't need, and then if this negates the use of a action camera, you can slap way bigger batteries on your quad because now you're reducing at least 100 to 150 grams ish on a GoPro. So,
and it's got a micro SD card slot that takes up to 512 gigs, so you don't get stuck with the because the DJI what was it, the Action, you had to like drain the footage off it, whereas this, you just swap SD cards and you're good, right?
Well, so I what I was looking at was the 04 Pro does have an SD card slot. The small one doesn't. It's only internal.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
good to know.
But I mean, I was watching Potato Jet's, I think it was like his younger brother or something in the video who was flying it, and man, on a Whoop or like a little, 2, it can't go down to 1S, can it? Or it's kind of pushing it, right?
So this is what I was hearing. Like it goes down to 3-point-something volts. What's the actual stated figure? I've got the specs from Oscar here, and damn, I can't see. I think it was 3.7 volts. You see, input voltage of a minimum of 3.7 volts. That's death on a 1S system.
True.
Because you're going to be below 3.7 a lot.
Yeah. So like 2S. I mean, dude, on a 2S Whoop or Tiny Whoop or whatever. I mean, that's to have that kind of image quality is insane.
Yeah.
And
honestly, like 2S systems are so much easier to work with than 1S. 1S is like you have to buy the super primo batteries from this one place that imports them that always sells out. You have to use the weird battery connector that's not that weird battery connector. It's the other one, isn't compatible with the other battery connector.
The BT 2.0
you have to have
a
special charger that's different to your other charger. Right? Then the batteries degrade and they come down really hot, but that's okay. It's normal. Don't worry about it. It's just, come on. If you go to 2S, everything's just like back in the realm of the sane again. It's easy to manage.
Well, you know what? So like
XD30s and done.
Like right now, I'm still waiting on props for my little Tiny Whoop that I think I talked about it maybe a few weeks back or a month or so ago. And because the only props I have, the whatever, you put it down on it and it's cracked, so it just flies off every time you try to fly. I've been waiting for new props for it for like a month now. Still hasn't showed up. I have everything else but new props to fly this Tiny Whoop, and it's on 1S, although the board is 2S capable, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it does seem like, I don't know, would you even be able to fit 8-gram VTX on a 1S? Would that be
there's always
a burden?
someone, there's like I remember Rabbit Ambulance, like he had all these builds that he did with the original DJI, the 2-board stack, and he was like, yeah, I get this on a 1S Whoop. Immensely creative, applause to the guy for his dedication. But he did a lot of work to make that happen. You're going around and you're shopping for special screws, everything is unique in the build, everything is a special built to order part. It's a challenge. Either that or it's just a massive tape or something. If you don't really want.
That's the one thing about the whole Tiny Whoop scene is like you're from what I've seen, like I don't know a whole lot about it, but you're pushing the limits on weight to performance to flight time and whatnot, right? And people are like doing everything they can to save weight and just
I mean, I think certainly when you get up to like that 2-inch, 2.5-inch, it's totally a no-brainer. You just do it, and you're gonna somewhat between 2-inch quads and up to like 3.5-inch. That light unit is going to be great. It's going to fit pretty much everything. It's basically the same size and weight as the Walksnail system, and I've put that into a whole bunch of quads in that bracket. They work great. Yeah. It's easy, and this one has a USB-C plug to get the footage off, which.
That's good enough.
The Walksnail ones didn't. I seem to remember you had to kind of mess around with their little adapter.
That's kind of annoying.
I think so. So it looks like the light unit has 23 gigs available space, which is probably gonna, if there's anything like the previous DJI, that's gonna get you.
It's gonna fill up quick.
It's gonna fill up quick, not crazy quick. If you can constrain your flying to scenic flying. at like 4K 30, it's going to last a lot longer. 4K 100, that thing's going to be nailed inside of 2 packs.
Totally.
Less than that, you'll be okay.
Well, the other thing too that Potato Jet was like begging of DJI for this release was, can we please get 24 frames per second in for recording? And they said no, you can't. But they did give 48 though. They gave 48 frames per second. So it's
on the 4.3 apparently your SOL also, because if you put you've got this weird situation where on DJI the goggles are always running like an integer multiple of what you're recording.
Yeah.
So if you have like 120 FPS goggles with the goggles V2, you could record 4K 60.
Yeah.
And then you could fly 4K 120. But you couldn't, like on the 100 FPS goggles, there was no option to record at 4K 50. So you had to step it down and run like 2.7K 100 or some crazy.
Yeah,
it was just a little bit messed up, and you're still
some kind of limitation, I guess, right? Like something. There's got to be a reason for it. Like I don't know what that reason is, but I'm sure there's some kind of
just hardware limitation. I mean, integer frame drops. You know, you can imagine how easy it is, Cole. You're literally just throwing away every second frame, and it's super easy.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're trying to go from 120 FPS to 50, or you're trying to go from 100
that's a lot
to
of
60,
frames.
You're like you don't have a one-to-one anymore. You're like, well, I drop this frame and then I reconstruct another frame out of these 2 frames, and then drop a frame and then I reconstruct a frame out of these other frames, and it's just there's a lot more maths to do. So we just don't do it.
Well, and that was the one thing too. Like, I mean, it's not 04 related or anything like that, but and I know when it comes to analog, we don't talk about frames per second. We're talking about like fields per second, right? And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this at all, but
I am more familiar with fields per second than you want to know, Cole. Like
Oh.
I had computers back in the old days when I had to have RF modulators. I am too familiar, if anything.
Well, because now that I have these Fat Shark HDO Plus goggles, like I don't know if they even advertise what the fields per second are. Someone was saying like that it's a high refresh rate, which I don't think that's even the correct terminology, but
it's 60, mate. It's like you get 30 frames per second, 60 fields per second.
Whatever, right?
That's NTSC, and PAL is 50/25. That's all you get.
Maybe, okay, there's no like miraculous.
Maybe if you're a Frenchie and you're smoking like a Gauloise inside a Gitan and being super cool, you might get CCAM, but I don't think anyone in FPV is using CCAM.
Well, it's weird because like, I mean, even look at the specs. I mean, I know we're kind of getting off topic here, but like, the DVR recording is still 6 megabits per second. Cry. Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, is there a wait. Oh, there we go.
I thought you were going to end up with a poop on your head for a second. Then I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, sorry.
6 megabit would be okay if it was like H.265, but I think that's the good thing about these digital systems, because the DVR is using the over-the-air format onto the goggles, and they're naturally inclined to make that as space efficient as possible. So you get really good DVR on the goggles, and you get excellent DVR on the quad.
Yeah,
because it's part and parcel of the whole system. Whereas on analog, the DVR is, hey, we've got an extra bullet point we can put on our features list. We'll get the cheapest DVR module we can find.
Yeah.
Sorry for running away with that.
No. Honestly, it's better that we're kind of going back to the digital realm, I guess, for this topic. But I mean, I guess the big thing for me, I think that really draws my attention, like obviously, like I said, like I'm not a digital guy when it comes to this drone stuff, but being able to ditch an action camera, throw on a heavier battery, still get really nice footage, does seem like something that would be just game changing in the sense of just longer flight times, almost as good as an action camera.
This is interesting. I knew it was going to happen eventually, and I guess I've been kind of waiting with curiosity, Cole, but it's tripped some like invisible line in your opinion of the system where we've now got to the point where it's gone from being that's too expensive, no, to like, okay.
I mean, I guess here's the thing. I was toying with the idea at the O3 release as well. So like it always piques my interest. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm gonna jump on the bandwagon, and the other thing too is every time there's these releases, people put out footage that looks so good and it looks so nice, and it's like it blows your mind. But then I'll see like other people's footage and it doesn't look anything like that. So then I'm like, do I want to do $1,000 investment for an experiment to see if it's good enough? Like,
well, every year GoPro has a competition and they produce the most amazing footage you've ever seen. It doesn't mean if you buy a GoPro, you get anything like that, right?
Well, you can.
You can if you've got like a tiger sanctuary and a fireworks factory and a squirrel suit.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
I mean, Cole's video from Taiwan, like, I think he's got a fair claim to like some of their stuff. Like, Cole has been to places and flown in a way that does justify some of this nice video stuff.
Absolutely.
When it's like 3 p.m. on a December day where it's grey and wet in the UK, flying around like your local park.
Yeah,
it's possibly not the justification for
this is
nice
the lack of
analog
with DJI, where they tend to perform really well when the light levels are generous, and it'll be interesting to see how this works with poor lighting, because for the Vista and for the O3, I can tell you low light levels are the curse of that system. The noise flares up, the graininess is really apparent, and all of a sudden you're not looking at sharp footage, you're looking at kind of a smear.
Mush. You're just looking at So that was
for this. They've got a 30% bigger sensor.
Yeah.
They've got the same
half-inch is pretty good.
I think. Wait, is it a half-inch or is it 1/1/3?
Oh yeah, actually we're getting a half-inch on the light and 1/1.3 on the Fat Boy. So the Fat Boy gets a bigger sensor.
Which again, I think. Let me just double check here. I think on the DJI Mini 3 and on the DJI or Mini 3 Pro and Mini 4 Pro, I think they also they get the same size, and those cameras are really good in low light. So referencing back to Potato Jets as well, like he did some low light tests, and it's not quite as good as like the Action 5 camera, but I think that even has a bigger sensor than that. But compared to the O3, I think it's going to kind of blow it away. And I think that's been a huge complaint. And I think it's even a 1.7 aperture lens as well.
So you're going from like 0.58 square inches on the O3 to 0.76 or 0.77 on the O4. It's an appreciable increase in area. Yeah.
And I think, oh no, you know what? I lied. It's not a 1.7 aperture. It's a 2.8 aperture. Oh, wait. Oh, it has a 1.7. Okay, sorry. I'm looking at wrong specs here. But look, the O4 Pro has a 2.8 aperture.
They also dropped the weight on the Pro, so it's down from a hair under 40 grams to 32 grams. So weight savings on the full fat one, never mind the light.
I feel like they're as every year comes and the releases come out, like they're refining it to a point where it's going to get smaller and smaller and better and better. So I'm one thing that I'm confused at though is like, why don't they use a faster lens? I guess maybe 2.8 is like the point where they're like, we need this much in focus. We don't even want any
barrel distortion. Maybe
could be, yeah.
Because you tend to go for the low f. Like the prime lenses, the glass ends up costing more. You need like more bulk in the lens, and maybe they just don't want to give you like a giant camera dildo.
But the thing is, with the the DJI Mini 3 Pro and Mini 4 Pro, they do have a 1.7 aperture lens. So I'm like, if they can put that in their little mini drones, couldn't they?
Yeah, but how big is the sensor behind that as well? And also they get the luxury of designing the entire chassis around the camera, whereas we're going to just shove it on the pointy end of something.
Yeah,
with a couple of bits of carbon and call it good.
And f2.8 is pretty. That's a pretty wide aperture for this tiny sensor. Like,
yeah,
it's fine. I'm interested in the thermals on this because they're making it smaller, they're making it lighter, and the O3 already had overheating problems, right?
And they're increasing the power output. You go from 30 dBm on the O3 to 33 dBm on the O4.
Yeah, or in normal numbers, from 1 watt to 2 watts.
Yeah. Or also
in the UK, 25 milliwatts, obviously.
25 to 25.
Yeah. Two antennas.
So that actually is an interesting thing as far as like people go out and say they buy this system. Can you choose, like, because I don't know anything about these digital systems. Do you choose your output? Do you choose your...
No, you just say, I'm an American yeehaw, and then you crank it to FCE. And I've heard other people have had good results based on
other people
I found in the past.
Definitely. Yeah.
I've heard it's very easy to do. You just stick a file on an SD card, you put your SD card in your O3
You whistle a couple of bars of Yankee Doodle Dandy, and it just sets you to FCE. You're good.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it just does everything you could want it to do.
So so no matter which mode you're in, whatever region wise, like there's no I want to be at this dBm, I want to be at this dBm, I want to be at this dBm, and you can choose and see if you're going to fly close, you have it on the lowest, or is it all just dynamic, or how
it's dynamic? So what it's doing is looking at the amount of errors that are in the stream, and if the amount of errors creep up, then it thrashes up the power, similar to what Express LRS does, but there's evidently a bunch more maths and a bunch more communication. It's just, what's my link quality? Ooh, that's a bit dicey. Crank it. Oh, that looks fine. Let's try and back it down.
I believe on the OG Air unit, you could select it, which is why certain people like that, because then they can pick the right one for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, from O3 onwards, it seems like
you set the ceiling.
Yeah.
And it's below that ceiling, but you don't get to statically set it for the whole time, which is good because you don't really want it burning the quad up while you're arming it and checking.
There is that, but it does mean that if you're flying somewhere where it's spotty, if you go behind something and you lose that connection.
Oh, wow. Ironically speaking, of losing connections.
Could not have timed it better, Frank. I do wonder, did he have a button to do that?
Did he go behind something?
Were you ducking and diving behind a bando there, Frank?
Yeah, exactly. But when you do that, in that instance, I would be gone. I would be completely lost because in my experience of seeing people use this in places where you're allowed to use the higher power, when you lose the connection, the air unit goes, oh, I don't have a connection. I'd better go back to my minimum power, and then it's.
And this was one of the accusations people leveled against O3, that once it went, oh, I can't see any VTXs at all, I give up. Both sides of the link kind of shrugged and waited until they had returned to within 15 feet of each other and could connect on minimum power. Weird. Which, if you're flying at distance or in a challenging RF environment, is terrible. And so what people really want to see from the O4 that we've yet to see borne out with any testing is aggressive link reestablishment. And this is something that WalkSnail, to their credit, people like to give them a bunch of shtick, but they figured it out and they made it work. So you don't worry about losing connection with WalkSnail. It'll just appear when it has line of sight to the receiver again.
Yeah,
DJI less so.
Because I remember some of the things that deterred me from going digital with these DJI systems was you'd see people they'd be flying, it would go, and then it would be pixels, and then it would be splash screen. And to me, that I'm not even on board with that even slightly.
No, it's horrible.
So but apparently with the O3 unit, it got better, or it doesn't just do that. It kind of fixes itself a bit, and then.
I mean, it's not perfect. I don't know if I'd really trust I fly my O3 stuff where I want to take a light quad and I want to get some nice footage with it. You know, I don't want to have to carry an action camera as well. I want to fly something that's like sub 250 and still get a decent picture. Would I put it behind bando walls at distance? I'd probably recce it with another drone before I did that. I wouldn't do it immediately with the O3.
So the weird thing that I see about on these spec sheets of O4 versus O3 or O4 Pro versus O3 is like supposedly the maximum range on O3 was like 23 kilometers, like supposedly, and what I'm seeing on Oscar Lang's website is that it's supposedly 13 kilometers, but maybe to be, continued or to be discovered. But you'd think, okay, 4 is better than 3. 4 should be able to go a little further, but who knows?
So Caroline's saying on race mode you can fix the bandwidth or the power or the race channel or all of them, I guess.
Cool.
She also mentions that you do get a good picture down to low single digits on O3. It's much better at hanging on to those last few fragments of MPEG data and rendering it on the goggles. That the issue that people had was when it did lose connection, it didn't then reestablish that connection. That was the problem. That you ended up in this situation where both sides kind of thought, well, there's no point trying, and didn't. For instance, what you'd really want, that you want the VTX to just go to maximum power and blast, and for the goggles to be wide open for a new connection from the VTX. And O3 wasn't doing that. Which is why it's a little bit problematic.
Caroline is also saying that the official number for O3 was 10 kilometer range compared to the O4's claimed 15 kilometers. So they're claiming more.
Yes.
Which I guess
sounds about right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as when they put out like a Mavic type drone, so you get this amount of flight time battery wise. But
I'd have thought it's academic. If you're going over 10K, aren't you just running like ArduPilot or iNav with a route plan anyway? And you'll just be like, see ya. You're out in a desert in the US or somewhere, and you're just like going to fly this thing. And if you lose signal, it's going to have a kill switch that just bumps it up to 1,000 odd meters and just bombs it back home at sensible throttle rate.
It's. I mean, if you're flying 10 kilometers away, you are.
You'd be kind of crazy to do it full manual, right?
I salute to you if you do that.
Yeah, that's a long walk. That's a hike.
Hopefully, you had make sure you got GPS on that thing.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I know exactly where it landed, but it's going to take me like 2 hours to hike there. Or maybe if I run.
What I'm curious about, like, I wonder what like the long range record, but like I wonder what the long range record is. Just fully like free ball in it, no GPS. Like I'm curious.
Well, the ELRS guys did 100K infamously in that incident that landed Wesley a letter from the aviation authorities. So 100K, I say, that's pretty strong. It's a strong entry. That was on 2.4 gigahertz radio. Forget Crossfire as well. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. Yeah. It's
so people who say they need Crossfire to do more than like 5K, take that with a pinch of salt.
Yeah. Yeah, it is cool though, man. It is cool to see. Well, one thing that I thought was funny was like leading all up to this DJI O4 release, Bardwell was like, DJI hates me. They didn't send me anything. I'm so annoyed. And then like, what's like one of the first things I see today? Bardwell reviewing.
Yeah. DJI turned up at his house and personally orally pleasured him. He gave him a presentation on O4. Sorry, you made a mistake on that.
Legal notice. Views expressed.
I mean, they spoke to him about O4 and it gave him great pleasure.
Yes, that's better.
What do you think I meant? Get out of the gutter, Cole. Get out of the gutter.
Sorry. Yeah. No, it is interesting though. Like, I always love seeing these releases because you find out who's on the inside. You know what I mean? Like who's,
you find out who's got over 1 million subscribers and has earned a living off YouTube. real quick.
Yep. Yeah.
In case anyone's wondering, not us.
But we are coming up to our 10-year mark.
Just out of shock, Cole is actually sitting on a pile of DJI kit that's like, it's about 2 foot off the ground. About 2 foot off the ground. Just a
It's actually the
massive
05
pile.
air units, and I'm waiting for next year. Yeah.
It's going to be nice, but back to the why would you move to DJI, or why wouldn't you? You've got to bear in mind that if you buy now, there's every indication that it's going to work this year and the next year, and then after that, you're going to get the birdie, and you're going to get someone asking you to spend maybe $250 if you're lucky, but maybe $500 for a new set of goggles, and that's kind of what it looks like if you're using DJI.
Yeah, I got a buddy of mine locally who he's on 03. He says he's going to go 04, and what he was saying was like, oh man, like, well, why don't you just get some like V2 goggles now in an 03 air unit? And I'm like, because it's not going to be compatible with anything. Like those V2s aren't even compatible with any of this new system now.
You run the 03, right? The goggles 2 you can do. Wait, the goggles V2 you can run an 03 on them.
Yeah,
I do that. Thank you very much, someone, for donating. Although I had to peel off some bunch of stickers that were attached, which I think were intended to look like American flags, but unintentionally actually had Dutch flags all over them.
Wait, these are goggles.
American assumes that red, white, and blue is just their flag, but when it's arranged in a specific arrangement, it's actually definitely Dutch. So
or France.
Yeah, well, there we are. Yeah, so you're going to be a little bit stuck, and this is why I'm curiously watching WalkSnail to see what they do, because so far they've resisted the urge to cut backwards compatibility, whereas DJI have really set a precedent where when you went from the original Air units to the 03, the first set of goggles just was cut off. SOL, good luck, thank you, and goodbye. And then when you went from that to the 04, what you're seeing is now the second set of goggles is cut off. The goggles V2 no longer works. And I think we're now, so you need a goggles 2 or Integra. And if you have those, you lose race mode, because apparently they've changed some of the image processing. So instead of using just one chipset and kicking out H.264 data, now they're using a separate chip they've added into the mix that does H.265, and that doesn't work with the goggles 2, doesn't work with the Integra. So you can't do race mode on those, and there's every indication that when you get to the next iteration with 05, the Integra and goggles 2 are going to be out of the mix. So then you really need to, I need to maximize this so I can see. That's very small text. So then you need to think, well, how long are they going to actually be in stock? If I invest in 04 now and I want to use these pair of goggles, how long can I realistically buy stock of these VTXs for? Which is, I guess, something you don't really have to worry about with analog. In fact, it's the one thing you don't have to worry about with analog.
No. Well, it's just crazy. Like I was looking at that the chart basically. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, sorry. Wait, I lied. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No, they don't count 4. They count goggles V2, goggles 2, and then it goes from 2 to Integra, and then I'm getting a headache.
Goggles
and
3
and
N3.
3 and then N3. Yeah.
So there's 6 different goggles now. Like
there's 6 different goggles. There's 3 different sets of naming standards. Like literally each generation of the product has a totally different naming standard. This isn't even the 4th generation of the product. This is the 3rd generation of the product, but it's called 04 because why? Well, F you. We're DJI.
What was the first? Because obviously the first one was the DJI Air unit.
In this generation, you've got the DJI Air unit that was the weirdly shaped one. congratulations, print a TPU mount and try and shoehorn it into a drone. And then you've got the Vista. We've discovered bolt holes. You can now bolt the thing to a drone. Revolutionary. And then after that, you go to the 03 and now the 04.
So what I'm curious though is, so what was the release date of the original OG air unit? If anyone can remember that.
It feels almost prehistoric now. I think the first couple of generations were on.
Was it 2018, 2019?
Yeah, I think the first ones were on like a 2-year delay before we got. 03 took a really long time to arrive, and from 03 to 04, it's been much quicker.
I'm really curious because I think it was 2018. Well, okay, people are saying 2019. So let's say 2018, 2019, just as if we don't have the official,
just to get a feel for it, yeah.
So
I think it was before lockdown, so I think 2019, yeah.
Okay, well, it's really weird. Like I typed in DJI Air unit release date, and nothing. I'm not getting the answers.
The problem is it's all being flooded with 04 release date.
Exactly. I'm just getting flooded with 04 stuff when I try and search.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say 2018. So 2019, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So in 7 years, we've had 6/7, well, essentially almost 7 goggles, 1 goggle per year.
After the last 2 generations have included 2 bargain versions.
Yes.
You've got the premium.
So it doesn't actually count as
So throw away 2 of those goggles iterations. You've got the goggles V2, the goggles 2, and the goggles 3. You've only actually got 4 goggles.
Because Integra and N3 were
those are bargain versions.
Yes. Yeah. It just I guess in the past when it comes to analog goggles, how often was Fat Shark putting out, like what was HDO to HDO2, and then what was their?
But it was release? The same tech, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it didn't make a huge difference. Like you could still use all your old VTXs. I can still use my old VTXs with brand new.
There was it wasn't like a proprietary anything. Yeah. It's interesting. It's I don't know. DJI, put it this way, they know what they're doing. They know how to make money. So, and they also know how to make people excited about what they're releasing.
And that's how you can trust them.
Yeah. You know what? Like everyone hates on DJI. Everybody hates on Apple. And I always say that DJI is the Apple of drones. The thing is for me is like,
if you want a good breakfast, go to McDonald's.
Well, I guess it's like, do we hate them because they're so good and because they're the ones that are like, they're like, ooh, let's figure out how we can make the best thing that everyone wants.
They really don't engage with us at all. Like as much as we like, we swear and complain at DJI because they just disregard us and throw products at us. And then it's the only thing we're going to get. And they're not going to talk to us. So the community just goes, sighs collectively and figures out how to make it work.
How to get one. Yeah.
But how to fit it into a frame, how to make the firmware work with it. Like none of this. They're making 20mm sized cameras. No one else makes 20mm sized camera. They could make it 1 millimeter narrower. Do they? Do they? Fuck.
But I guess the question is, they're making it to what they can make it as, right? Like, so they're like, look at us. We're the king here. We're the king. So everybody has to bow down to us. We're going to make it how we need to make it, or you don't use it.
But you remember when Caddx released a camera? They did a 19mm camera. Yeah, it's like, and there was like, of course, there's like a 19mm one, and everyone was like, wow. And then after that, we went back to DJI doing the cameras themselves, and they're like, well, F you, 20mm.
Yeah,
but they don't fit.
Richard Warwick in the chat has done some research and says it launched summer 2019.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So we've gotten a lot of goggles in not a lot of years, basically. See, and again, this is why I stick with analog. I do love DJI products. I like their camera stabilizers. I do like their little mini drones because they're so handy as a tool. But when it comes down to just being able to fly, not having to worry about any bullshit. Sorry, editor. Like, that's why I'm an analog. That's why I'm an analog guy, man. Because it's like, I plug my drone in. I plug a battery into my drone. I turn my goggles on, and they work. I don't need a boot up. I don't need to wait for the splash screen to then press a thing that says go live or go fly or whatever. It's like, you turn it on, it just works. And in most cases, it's more than good enough to see. And like, I know, analog is never going to be as good as digital picture-wise, but it is good enough if you get good analog.
Pragmatism, man. Absolutely. Pick the right tool to do the job. You can't find one tool that does everything. DJI is not good for whoops. DJI is not good for
except for
long range. DJI is not good for racing. There's loads of things it's not good for. Just it happens to make the best TV commercial for people that don't really know anything about drones. And it gives those people the impression that it's the best for everything because they haven't tried to build something that's under 25 grams. They haven't tried to fly over 10K. They haven't tried to go racing. It just looks like, oh, pretty. I can chase someone on a mountain bike. Must be able to do everything.
Well, this links back to what I keep saying about FPV is the barrier to entry for newbies. And like DJI keep the barrier to entry for newbies to try any of these things to like to take their first steps. They can take their first steps towards long range, towards cinematic, towards FPV, towards racing, as in they can fly something round a track with DJI stuff. Yeah. And they, they've lowered the bar to do all this stuff.
Which honestly, in a lot of ways, like you have to tip your hat to them because again, going back to the Apple of drones, like that's the way that Apple's always been. It's like you get a small little nice computer, it looks nice, you just press a button, it works, and you don't have to know anything about a computer for it to work and for you to get good results out of it. And then you get Steven, who's about to rip his mustache out because I'm saying these things. But
I'm just cooling my head with my glass, don't you?
but it's so true though, and I'm not even being like, oh yeah, I love them, they're so great, but that's just what they do. And for the average Joe who doesn't even know how to like,
they can take something out of the box. They don't need to be like, oh, I need to flash my ESC. What's an ESC?
Yeah. What does flashing mean?
Yeah.
How do I?
I've got a dirty Mac and I've got the drone. This doesn't feel like I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's like I guess it's almost like it's like going to the dealership to pay them for a new wiper blade. It's like that's. I mean, I'm sure people do it and they get fleeced and they do it, but that's exactly what.
No, well, it's going to take half an hour, mate, at least.
And it's going to charge. We're going to charge you like $30 extra on top of the cost of the actual wiper.
This $3 wiper blade is a snap $50 bit.
Yeah.
You want us to update the warranty claims? Oh.
Oh man.
Yeah, and fair enough. People get into the hobby that way. I was buying Hobsan kit, when I got started, and then I just got infuriated because I'm like, this all looks suspiciously like BS. Surely there's another way. Oh, you mean read millions of manuals? I can read millions of manuals. Off we go.
Well, that's the thing. But you'd at that point you de-risked the time you needed to spend to learn everything, right? Because you'd already had a bit of an experience and gone, oh, this is something I enjoy and it's worth putting the time into.
And if you're someone that actually just wants to get a pretty picture of the sea, then maybe you're not someone that wants to learn to solder. But
when you start out, you don't know what you like, right?
No.
Like you don't know if what really is going to excite you is long range or proxy or racing or cinematic, or you don't know. So to have some options to get into that easily, and that's what I worry about. The separation of freestyle racing and everything,
they end up owning everything
in FPV is that it's our side of the hobby is actually really hard for anyone to get a taste of everything. Like you can't sample everything the way when it was all bits of wood and on PAL. you could dip your toes into everything because it was all similar enough to each other. But now that everyone's spent all this time and effort developing all these kind of different branches of FPV, and they've evolved away from each other. Like they're all really, at the bleeding edge. They're amazing things that those 10 people can do really well. But not meaning to, but they've almost drawn up the ladder behind them by making it harder to get into these areas, like to get into any of these areas, because the odds that the person who would really enjoy freestyle tries freestyle before racing is very slim. And now if they bought racing kit and they can't, or they bought Whoop kit and they can't go and do some freestyle stuff outside with what they've got, or whatever, it's a lot easier for people to end up getting themselves into a dead end of the hobby and be like, I've got this kit, but I didn't enjoy it, so this is not the hobby for me.
So that's it. It almost, the blinders get put on when all you've done is gone down one street when there's branches of streets, right? Like
it reminds me of musical genres where you could rewind like 60 years and be like, oh, it's played on electric guitar, it's rock music, done. And now you're like, oh, is it like symphonic black metal? Is it hardcore punk? Is it reggae? Well, this guitar could be put to a million different uses in different spectrums of the sound. And it feels like we've diverged like that. My concern is if we say DJI is just categorically the best way to get into the hobby, it's kind of like, well, the best way to get into computing is to buy a Mac. Please get $2,000 together and buy a Mac, and that is then the drawbridge for new users, that they need to get this huge pile of cash.
So what we're saying is we need the BBC Micro of FPV.
Yeah, the micro drone, perhaps, Frank.
Yeah.
And on that
what's the BBC Micro? The old computer.
The really cheesy like Motorola CPU based thing that
black and red keyboard.
It was funded by the BBC, and a lot of people here in the UK, their first experience of computing might have been at a school with like a fishbowl CRT monitor and a yellowed BBC Micro, and you'd learn to do programs that looked like an idiot typing a poem. With lots of go-to statements.
Jack.
Acorn Atom for Caroline. Oh, fancy pants.
I don't know. In my opinion, like I feel like whatever works for anybody, I think that's all that really matters. Like there's no right or wrong way of doing anything. Stephen might disagree when it comes to computing, but
this is why you worked at the Mac store. I mean, you just get the salesperson on. There's no right way or wrong. There's an Apple product for everyone. The iPad, or maybe you want an iPhone, or maybe you're going to get this fancy display over here. There's really a lifestyle product for everyone.
Wait, hold on. Wait for it.
What synth have you got over there?
Wait, it's going the wrong way. Oh crap.
Don't show that. Oh my god.
That's not a Mac down there. That's not a Mac. Wait, where is it? There we go. That's a DW8000 Korg, first wavetable synth ever. And it works again, which is really nice.
Sweet.
But I don't know, man. Like what is it? What's the term? Like
I had an Atari STE for those that are listening along. That's where I started.
Yeah. I guess it's just like in the day and age of everybody wants everything as simple and easy as possible, even if it costs more money. That's the age we're in right now, which like we all want, as humans, we all want to walk the path of least resistance, right? And that doesn't actually help you in any way from what I've learned, because I was a DJI Mavic guy for many, many years before I got in this.
Yeah, Jack does some things very well, I'm sure. It just doesn't, nothing does everything, and you've got to figure out what you want to do.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's that never-ending debate of like what's right and what's wrong, but there is no such thing as right and wrong when
moral relativism. That's what we end up walking into, is the ancient philosophical battleground of moral relativism.
Yeah.
What's right and 100 years ago now looks like some seriously misguided nightmare.
And what was right 5+ years ago with analog is still right today. So
for analog.
Yes.
Asterisk. Big asterisk.
Yeah. No, that's funny, man. That's so funny. No, it's good though. I think it's good to talk about because people should think about this stuff more. Like, we don't need to just necessarily be so blinders on, but
the right tool for the job, man. Time and time again, like I work in IT, and there's always some evangelist who's trying to tell you that this one thing they've just discovered a week ago is the best way to do everything ever. And it's never true. I mean, it's cool, and I'm sure it's exciting, and it's probably useful for the thing they just discovered it with. But trying to sell it to everyone for everything ever, it's almost always hiding to nothing. It's just, this kind of and it breeds the rampant tribalism that we see in FPV, where something is new and exciting, and all of a sudden people are throwing horrible slurs around to people that they used to call friends just because they don't agree with that this new thing happens to be the best thing ever. And you got to bear in mind, like, another 12 months time, there's going to be another new thing.
There's going to be the 05 year,
and maybe you won't be in a position to buy it in 12 months time, and someone else is going to be shouting at you for being some kind of Neanderthal and not being on board. No, it's just the way it goes round.
I swear it's like this trend where people pop up from time to time after seeing my videos and they say, "You're still flying analog, dude? Like, you're not going to be able to do this forever, and you better get on the train before it's gone." And I'm like, I don't know, man. I think that most technology doesn't just disappear. That's why we still have synthesizers from the late 70s or 80s kicking around. Like, things still work. You know what I mean? Like, do I have a digital emulation version of the synth in my computer?
It depends if they start marketing.
This sounds better though.
If they start marketing off the spectrum and make it so that you need a handshake, that's when it's going to be problematic. Because with digital systems, you can check a frequency, see if it's alive, and only handshake once you've got the frequency up, and then you can do spread spectrum and you can hop. O3 does this by default, right? You don't lock it to a frequency, you just say go, and both sides look at the best frequency, pick that, and then they go ahead and use it. And that's why it's a nightmare for racers. But on the flip side, that's how Wi-Fi works, that's how Bluetooth works, that's how a lot of other modern technology works. And if that gets enshrined in law, then you are looking at a world where analog video effectively becomes outlawed. And so you just got to hope that doesn't happen.
It's you never know.
I'm sorry, I ended it on a downer inadvertently. Someone a joke quickly.
So the 04, the 04, it's great. You should get one if you want it.
If DJI want to pay us some money, then we'll say that, sure.
Yes.
There'll always be a train graveyard, as Jack says.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be good for a while yet. We did see terrestrial die in some countries. I think they didn't actually pass a law to kill it here, but I know some countries, they're killing off FM radio, they're killing off analog TV, and once you've got those out the way, you're kind of in a march where sooner or later you're going to stop people from just blasting on a frequency forever.
Yeah. I mean, the benefit of using 5.8 and 2.4 is that they are unlicensed bits of spectrum, but they're not permanently unlicensed, right? Like there has already been talk about taking some of that 5.8 and giving it to more 5G type situations. So there is still the spectre of Ofcom in the background being like, "Oh, you want to use some bandwidth, do you?" Yes.
And if you're running Wi-Fi, you could do that at 100 milliwatt or something. But if you're going to run a fixed frequency that's not spread spectrum, you're going to be stuck at 25 right now, and in future you might not get 25.
Yeah.
Only the future hold. The future will unravel the truth.
Yeah. So, enjoy things while they're here. I think that's the message.
Yeah.
We can go and fly. We have the technology. We have the stuff. We can go do it. So don't squander the time that we have.
I think that's the message about life, even. Like, enjoy things while we can.
Yeah.
Do the ones you love.
Yes.
Love the ones you do?
Analog.
Something like that.
Analog. Kiss Ultra.
Analog. Everyone, happy 2024. And thank you to our wonderful Patreons. Including Francois Pelsa, Stubbsy Cleanflight, Chris N, RDM.
Wait, are we in 2024? What's happening?
2025, Andrew Lawrence, Caroline Tyler, Carl Canal, Martin McFly, MSE, Gabe Poland, Sam Dharma, Lewis Chapman, John Bertram, Robin Moore, yes, of course, 2025, Stuart Thorne, Stephen, who's that? David Powell, Wes, Aris, Michael Murgatroyd, David Myers, Fraser Steen, Lee Southworth, Clive, Art Faulkner, Wynne Davis, Richard Warwick,
from the chat,
Josh Bardwell, who I don't know,
Daddy
Greg
Bardwell.
Spencer, Bloods FPV of the frame design, Phil Flying Dog Parslow, Dan Upton, Dan Carboni, Dom Robinson, and Sawney Bean FPV. Thank you for your support. You're all amazing, and we really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And I'll try and remember the right year next time. And that's goodbye from Bob, and it's goodbye from me. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.